Servus, Konnichiwa oder Ohayo gozaimasu. Im letzten Part schlossen wir Kapitel 13 ab. The Road Home und ein Incident One Day und The Wonderful World of the Ploys Part 3. Und ich würde sagen, wir beginnen heute mit The Wonderful World of the Ploys Part 4 und The Honey Adventure. Aber erstmal zu den Ploys. Bittersweet Menschkraft.
今日もワンは働いているすかシャバゾウ。これで鳥の餌を1ダースくれ。冷えか麦の一番いいところを頼む。
いらっしゃいませ。昼間から買い物なんていい身分ね、ロビン。
いえ、アリスさん、なんで店員とかしてるっす？シャバゾウはどこ行ったっすか？
鳥頭のくせに細かいことを気にするのね。今日は私が店番をしているの。何か意見があって？
いや、ないっすけど。あ、ピンときたっすよ。さてはアリスさん、シャバゾウと一緒にアルバイトとかスイーツな子。
なぜなにプロイ。
なぜなにプロイ。
今回は比較的安全なプロイキッシャーの紹介よ。さあロビン、好きなものを選びなさい。
ケーキショップかと思ったらプロイキッシャーを売ってる闇市場だった。三崎町はほんと地獄っすね。じゃあ右端から順に行くっすか。この宝石箱っぽいやつは何すか？
それは6ペンスの歌、ジャック・イン・ザ・ボックス、シックス・スイング・チョコレートよ。地味に見えるけど役に立つプロイね。どこかの誰かさんとは大違い。
16 Chocolate from Storage Box. Chocolate liquor, cocoa butter, powder bone. Contains 24 familiars, no combat skill ability, a network of bursts that move to Misaki Town. The bursts seek out would-be criminals. The chocolate are also infused with special energy, so they can be melted down as a first aid measure. As a ploy kick show no stronger than normal familiars, it can even be destroyed with firearms. About 10 fly into power lines and die every day. If you close the box, all active bursts change back into chocolate.
当たり前っす。鳥はすべて有能かつエレガントな使いますから。かくいう自分も6ペンスの歌なら知ってるっすよ。鳥つながりで。6ペンスの歌を歌うっす。ポケットにはいっぱいのライ麦っす。24羽の黒ムクドリ、パイの中に焼き込まれた。
Time for work!
なぜ意味もなく鳥を虐殺するのかわかんないっす。西欧圏の人間どもは鳥を何だと思っていたのか。
その後はお金の勘定をする王様、こっそり蜂蜜かけたパンを食べる王妃といった歌詞が続くわね。2番目以降は当時の政治を風刺した歌なんじゃないかしら。
いや、端的に久遠寺邸の日々を表しているっす。金勘定するのが王じゃなくて女王な青セーターで、こっそり贅沢をするのが王妃じゃなくてあり。
さよならロビン。次は何？
生きてるとか愛してるとかそういうセリフはないっすか？ないっすね。
Pura Ben.
でも自分的にはノープロ。 アリスさんの虐待もラブの方。んなんすかこれ、超ウケる。このでっぷりしたやつ超ブサイクなんですけど、生きてるのが恥ずかしくなるレベルっす。
Ich mag Alice Gesichtsausdruck.
あなたよ。
あなたよ。
だからそれがあなたの本体。ロストロビンロンドとタグには書かれているけど、あなたにはもったいない名称ね。
まさにミケランジェロクラスの造形っす。自分店に入った時からこいつが一番高価で大人気だって気づいてたっすよ。ほんとほんと。
詳細データは必要ないわね。あなた本編で十分すぎるほど出しゃばってるから。元は葬式の歌よ。殺されたロビンをめぐってのお話。誰がという問いかけに、私がと参列者たちが答えていくの。犯人探しの歌でもあるわ。大ヒットしたマザーグースで、その後前日譚であるコック・ロビンとジェニー・レンの幸せな求婚が出版され、これまたヒット。
Interessant.
その後コック・ロビンの死の後を歌ったスズメの裁判と処罰も出版。羨ましいわ。印税だけで大儲けね、ロビン。
鳥には1円も入ってこないっすけどね。それよりアリスさん知ってるっすか？コマドリはイギリスの国鳥っすよ。クリスマスの象徴でもあるっす。つまり魔法世の主役は自分。
Purer Ben. Und da fliegt er.
あんまり調子に乗ってると大変よ。
すでにこれ以上ないほど大変っす。
あとはほとんど残り物ね。と
アリスさんアリスさん、この3つ目のプロイなんすか？目っぽい形をしたキャンディー？
目玉よ。
目玉っぽいキャンディー？
No?
本物の目玉よ。見る？
アリスさんの左目、悲願だったんすか？
そういうわけではないのだけど、私の左目もプロイ扱いなだけよ。
アクロスティック化ってなんすか？
Scripts Humpty. Witch History. None. Simultaneously incantation. Acrostification of mystic eyes. Requires a large amount of magical energy. So, acrostification cannot occur unless diddle diddle is active.
一つの言葉にたくさんの意味を持たせることよ。ルイス・キャロルが提示したカバン語と同じね。鏡の国でアリスはハンプティにこう質問したの。シナヌルストーブってどういう意味？ハンプティは答えたわ。それはな、しなやかでぬるやかという意味だ。分かって。要は異なる2つの意味を新しい言葉として生み出すルール変更。それが魔眼のアクロ化よ。別にハンプティがモデルというわけではないのだけど、彼女はハンプティにちなんだ名前をつけたのね。
ただの思いつきなんすけど、初回限定版と通常版をくっつけるとどうなる？
そうね。その2つを合わせた場合、初回特典付きのアイテムが永遠に市場に残り続けるでしょう。
その場合、新しい言葉は初回限定普及版っすね。
違うわ。ワゴン行きよ。
We apologize for any incorrect remarks.
このように 使いどころが難しいプロイな。
次はこれっすか。こいつについては番外編で語るんでパスっすね。次はなんすかこれ。
ただの失敗品よ。私の最初のプロイ。使い道はないのだけど記念として飾っているの。
おー。
この通り魔術戦には使えないわ。形も良くないから見せるものでもないのだけど、こういうのは思い出だから。
Muss kurz mein Wecker abschalten. Pardon. Wieder da. Name Snow White. Components first mistake. Effect powdery snow falls for a few minutes.
ブローチの形をした砂糖細工なんすね。うわ、雨。アリスさんの手作りキャンディー。雨。
そろそろ就業時間ね。私は先に帰っているから後片付けをやっておいて。
Sponsor Tokitsu Baking Company Ltd. Working Alice. Trophäe erhalten. Dann ab in the Honey Adventure. It had been 1 year since he would moved into the city from his remote village. One thing he noticed during the time is that likes and dislikes were the main difference between human and the beast.
ここが新しいアジトか。いいんじゃない。ちょっとみすぼらしいけど周りに人間がいないのは綺麗でいいよね。
The figure dressed in white coat danced to and fro down the hallway. It was like a young woman in an old film enjoying herself window shopping. Was actually enjoying the atrocious sight of the school building in ruins.
そこあんまりはしゃがないの。何しろ築60年からの廃屋なんだから。調子に乗ってるとバキッと床を踏み抜いて。
His mouth shut before he could even say to let him have this fun. Only once did the footsteps echoed through the hallway. Not a single feather worth a 70-pound body was exerting any force on the floor beneath him. It wasn't clear whether he was paying reversions to the hallway or simply excited by it. It said even walking through a grassy field. A beast is carefully not to harm a single blade of grass. Apparently, this creature wrapped this coat was no different. It was more part of the environment itself than a settler of it. He had no regards. Beasts were greater or lesser than him, but when it came to his comrades, he at least displayed a human-like or rather wolf-like clemency.
ま、相性はいいとプラスに考えましょう。街に出かけてくるけど何か欲しいものはある？漫画とか。特にいりません。あ、帰りにハンバーガー買ってきてくれたら嬉しいな。パン生地がどっしりしててハンバーグがギュッとしたやつがいい。まだおもちゃより食い気ときた。食事の調達方法も確保しないとダメみたいね。失敗したかな。ルームサービスのあるホテルの方が後々証拠は残らなそう。
took it to the defeated side. With her glasses on, she was restricted to her original way of speaking and gesturing. It was the beginning of December. Exactly 1 month had passed since they came to Misaki City. Until now, Toko has been attacking Misaki from nearby neighborhood. Decided it was time to get serious. She had moved her base of operations to this old school building.
何？ホテルの方が良かったの？そりゃ楽だもの。グレードが良ければホテル暮らしは快適です。でもトウコさん、こういう廃墟好きだよね。え？そうかな。そうだよ。今回みたいなのは特に趣味に走るとき、周りに人がいるの嫌がるじゃない。いろんなものに興味を持つくせに、興味を持たれるのは面倒っていうか。
Toko couldn't deny that observation. She had been under contract with him for 2 years, but it had only been about a year since he became a full-time bodyguard. He seemed to be able to see right through the root of all the problems that plagued Toko.
人混みは嫌いじゃないんだけどね。ハイビルでもハイ工場でも、いっそあの遊園地でもよかったのよ。でもこんな田舎町じゃ君を連れているだけで噂になるでしょ。結果的にここに工房を構えるしかなかったの。ちゃんと人型になってるじゃん僕。別に目立たないと思うけどな。色合いの問題です。アジア系は無理にしても、せめてブルネットに化けてくれればいくらでもごまかせるんだけど。
Unfortunately, wouldn't be happening. Simply being a human form at all was stressful for him. When he had to be human, his only condition was that he could look however he wanted. He was currently only in his form because they had to move from the town in the old school building once he found a classroom to sleep in, be back to a wolf.
なんだって人型でいるのを嫌がるのかしらね。別に難しいわけじゃないんでしょそれ。もともとアストラル体みたいなものなんだからあなた。
Being an extremely versatile life form which requires no body to stabilize him. In the physical world, his body could change according to the situation. Magecraft would have to find him as a higher dimensional life form for a materialized soul.
そりゃあ何の力もリスクもないけど、面倒なものは面倒だよ。色合い。なんだって人型。そりゃあ何の色合いの問題です。アジア系は無理にしても、せめてブルネットに化けてくれれば。なんだって人型。
Also er ist praktisch alles, was sich die Eispens gewünscht haben.
「そりゃあ何の力もリスクもないけど、面倒なものは面倒だよ。人間だって無駄なことはしたくないでしょ。僕、人型になることに有利性を全く感じないし。
Apparently he saw no value in it as his human form. That was exactly why Toko insisted he would make his appearance blend in more, but the boy argued that if he had to be in an unusual state, he would at least make himself comfortable. To him, he was the only fun way to be a human and he wasn't going to accept it any other way. And so, this was why he would take on the appearance of a foreign aristocrat in a provincial Japanese city. Even his posh coat had been picked by Toko to satisfy one of his many demands.
じゃあ、お留守番お願いね、ベオ君。来ないとは思うけど、もし人が来たら捕まえておいて。その際、足の一本ぐらいなら傷つけても OK だから。
And with that statement, Toko headed off into the city.
はーい、任されました。大丈夫。 人間とかそもそも口に合わないし、こっちのことは気にせず、あのピリピリするお土産よろしくね。
Bio plopped down onto her desk after he saw his employer off. He morphed back into his wolf form.
ああ、退屈。世界中を回ってこんな田舎町が終着とか。
It had been 2 years since Bio met Toko Aosaki. After some deliberation with the werewolves, the mage was left in charge of Bio's education. Of course, this village had no control over him. He did not have to go with her. He decided to go simply because she seemed interesting. Toko stood before him in the cave where he slept and asked,
生きている意味が知りたい？なんだ、そんなことで取引が成立するとはね。
She smiled and cut off her long locks of hair to seal the pact.
自由を知るには窮屈さを知っておかないとね。同じように生きている意味を知りたければ、まずは死ねないこだわりを見つけないと。そうだな。例えばの話、そいつを殺すまではとてもじゃないが死ねないほどの憎しみとか。
That hair was 20 years worth of Toko's life. In a way, her hair was part of herself, but she parted with it easily. She was sure that Beos was worth the 20 years it had taken her to grow that hair. Beo too says that Toko was a creature of rare value. Was happy to have been selected by someone of unusual talents, and though she preached learning restraint, he observed that she was a truly free woman. And then, Beo accepted the terms of his contract and left his village. He took his first steps into the outside world. The first year was spent with Toko's workshop in England, learning basic knowledge. Namely, it was a college of the main association called the Clock Tower. At the time, Toko had her own dedicated familiar. Formally speaking, this familiar was Beo's senior. But in that year's time, Beo proved himself superior and earned the right to travel the world with Toko. They rode on a train that collect mystic eyes, known as the Rail Zeppelin. Okay. Das ist einfach cool, dass der Rail Zeppelin schon so früh da war. They saw the Mukrake, an ancient giant octopus living in the North Sea. They explored the Bermuda Triangle, a place of no return, connected to other realms. They met the remains of a mage of the Elder Title, a leash of ancients, deep in West Senorupa. All of the explorers were all excited enough to hold his interests, and through them all, Beo felt that he had been right to join Toko. This was certainly less boring than sleeping in his cave. But sweet honey makes one crave even sweeter. Poison. Having developed a taste for adventure, he now demanded even greater thrills. It was only natural that such an innocent creature would start to look forward to his next prey. The pinnacle that desire rested on Toko's final goal. For all her liberty and her plump, there was one prey that she would not stop chasing until she caught it, once and for all. With every new adventure, Beo would ask,
ねえ、これがトウコさんの殺したい相手？
However, the mage would always smile wryly and shake her head in response. Even the puppet master of extraordinary talent claimed that it was no easy task. The target was the realm far beyond anyone they would dealt with so far, beyond human knowledge, perhaps beyond even Beo. But who could this person be, and how could they be so powerful? Bill couldn't help but be curious, discovering that he was hired for magical reasons. He mustered a rare bit of fighting spirit, thinking he would find Wonderfull's foe, but
冷静になって考えてみると、本物が偽物を相手にするとか大人げないかも。魔法なんて言っても結局は人間の手によるものなんだし。
clearly it was still only interested in itself. It knew nothing of life or freedom. Its only pleasure was found in food. Beo didn't necessarily feel satisfied, but if it was becoming harder to stave off his boredom. Also, since accompanying Toko on her adventures, his feelings toward her had become a bit confused.
トウコさん、あれでほんと一途だから。何でもできるのは僕と同じなのに、何にでも一生懸命になれるのってちょっと変だよね。
He slumped his shoulders exteriorly and closed his eyes. The golem wolf slipped off to sleep, not realizing that his feelings were in fact those of jealousy.
4年ぶりに帰ってきてみれば、住み慣れた町の面影はどこへやら。駅前なんてもう別物だし、大手術にも程が。ああ、やっぱり角のタバコ屋さんなくなってる。ああ、自動販売機でタバコを買うのにもそろそろ慣れなくちゃいけないのかも。
So we walked through her hometown for the first time in 4 years, grumbling to herself. She was on an aimless and careless stroll, not familiar with Skeletor, and she even left her self-defense back in the hideout. Today she was full in tourist mode, not nervous about a thing.
ここなんてあぜ道同然だったのに、今じゃ立派なストリートと来た。因果なものね。帰ってきたっていうのに、あっちに戻った時と同じ気持ちになってきた。
This was Toko's second time going back home. After leaving Aosaki home for 4 years, she would secretly return to Misaki. The first time was long ago. When Toko was 14 years old, she studied abroad at an academy in England. She spent 2 years there before returning to Japan. Then she enrolled in a local high school named Ryan Girls Academy and headed back to England 3 years later after graduating. That was 4 years ago. Now she felt the same as she did then, when she returned to that English country town where she would live for 2 years.
寂しい？ちょっと違う。呆れてるとも違うし、怖がっているも近くて遠いような。
She rounded her shoulders and fell deep into thought. So with a single run up her spine in a way that couldn't really be described in words. Time was changing faster than ever. Everything was relatively inexpensive and could be replaced on a whim. After thinking to herself a bit, she cracked her knuckles and set forth. There was no use in overthinking any of this. This was just how things were now. That's all there was to it. It was only natural for the old to make way for the new.
つまり、私の時代ってことだ。
You can do this, Toko. The sudden spark of self-enlightenment gave Toko the encouragement she needed, and she set off with high spirits toward the train station. Sailing down the boulevard, she excluded the confidence of a supermodel or dictator. Although she was not about to exclaim, "My conquest begins with Main Street. Time to tear it up." The enthusiasm was of course still there. Toko, however, had something she would accomplish first, before she could give thought of putting an end to this town's thoughtlessness. Attempting a modernization that would become outdated in just a few years.
甘い設定だ。
パチンコ。
こんな釘の絞りで客を煙に負けると思ったか？
Toko's first destination was not Misaki's protective sigils, but rather her old favorite pachinko parlor. Through the area around the train station had undergone a dramatic makeover. The back streets were mostly unchanged. Toko had exchanged 5,000 yen for some little silver pachinko balls before going upstairs and sitting on the machine. She that time was paying out the most today.
そろそろ打ち止めかな。千両箱が12箱か。まあ、4年ぶりにしちゃ上等だろ。
She sounds slightly disappointed, but her lips and posture betrayed her good humor. Pachinko parlors were staple form of entertainment in Japan, but they were largely absent in other countries. High-stakes gamers criticized its inefficient, time-consuming, too electrifying and unrewarding, and so forth, basically a child's game. When Toko was studying abroad, she didn't see anything that even resembled a pachinko parlor. However, she wasn't here playing pachinko because she was feeling nostalgic for it after 5 years. She simply needed a war chest.
しかし、エリのチャーター代だけで足が出るとは。日本は平和すぎて、裏稼業の相場が高すぎるんだ。くそ。おかげで無一文だ。とりあえず、レオの食いぶちだけでも稼がにゃならん。
Toko had shattered a helicopter to airlift. 3 shipping containers full of materials to rebuild the old school building into a workshop. There weren't any roads a truck could have taken to get the old school out deep in the mountains, so she had to be forced to burn through the last of her savings.
お、37。こいつは本格的におしまいかな。まったく、こういうどうでもいいゲームだけは星の巡りがいいと来ている。
Her smile remained in spite of his compliments. There was nothing more to her than her sitting across the leg in a pachinko parlor, one hand on the machine with the other holding a cheap cigarette. Toko noticed something out of the corner of her eye and put on her glasses to see it better. She glanced over toward the odd sounds she heard and saw a pale-faced parlor employee. The baby face, it looked like he was still in high school. Upon seeing Toko, he froze for a moment, then ran off. Or rather, he fled in a panic.
私、そんなに引く感じ？
Mage though she was, Toko was still in the prime of her youth. Though she didn't like it when guys ogled her or tried to strike up a conversation. She thought a boy running full tilt away from her was a bit much. Toko made a mental note to scare the crap out of the kid next time she saw him and returned to her game. Geil. Ich mag Toko einfach. With a winning ticket in hand, Toko left the pachinko parlor. She had won quite a bit, but it was hard to her to feel good about after what happened at the end of the session. Wondering what had happened, she looped around the back of the parlor to redeem a winning for cash.
おや、トウコさんじゃないですか。
She stopped her text, froze by familiar voice she hadn't heard in 4 years. Beo's ears perked up as he woke from his slumber. It was just before sunset. He opened his eyes with a big yawn, sniffing at the familiar scent in the tiger. Beo jumped down the floor and transformed back into his human form. Though he had Toko didn't have a strict master survivorship, he felt he should at least go and greet her since she was supposed to be watching over his place in her absence.
あれ？
Beo's face scrunched into a perplexed frown as they met in the hallway. He seemed something more than the more to smell he would been so used to.
ただいまレオくん。はい、真面目にお留守番していたお土産。
Toko handed the paper bag she was sorting to Beo. Beo was happy to get his hands on the bag stuffed full of hamburgers, but he tilted his head in the lingering of sand.
どうしたの？浮かない顔して。留守中何かあった？
いや、思わず寝ちゃうぐらい何もなかったけど、瞳子さんの方こそ何かあった？なんか元気ないし、妙に疲れてるし、何よりちゃんと僕の好きなお店のハンバーガー買ってきてるし。
え、そう？別に何もなかったけど。
This was all extremely suspicious. One of the major red flags for Beo was Toko's usual complete lack of interest in food. Toko thought that hamburger was the same no matter where you ate one, so she had often just stopped at wherever she was closest. Thus, Toko would only stop at a certain Asian burger chain still rare in Japan, maybe 1% of the time, not to mention.
いいじゃない。ちゃんと好きなお店のバーガーを買ってきたんだから。これは私なりのレオくんへの感謝の気持ち。今までいろいろ連れ回したけど、これからもよろしくね。
She had a slickly sweet smile on her face. If any of the puppet shit that loose and Misaki heard what she was saying right now, would probably fall into a logic error loop and self-destruct. Toko was not one to even consider the rise of her familiars.
うさんくさい、芝居くさい、真っ向くさい。優しい瞳子さんなんて瞳子さんじゃない。いっつも周りを恨んでいて文句ばっかり言って幸せそうな人たちをめちゃくちゃにしたいんだけど大義名分がないから我慢してる。そんな理性のおかげでかろうじて性格破綻者を免れてる瞳子さんはどこ行ったのさ。
失礼しちゃうな。私だってたまには優しくなる時ぐらいあるんだから。ほら、4年ぶりに故郷に帰ってきたのよ。レオくんだって里に帰ったらちょっとぐらいホッとするでしょ。それと同じ。私だってホームシックになる程度の可愛らしさはあるんです。
すっごい嘘。月が涙を流すぐらい嘘。
本当です。もうレオくんそれ返して。罰として夕食抜き。
Toko began to grab for the back of her, but Bacon dodged jumped out of the window. He'd actually kicked off against the wall and scrambled up onto the roof of the old school building.
なんだい、ほんとつまんない。言い訳する瞳子さんとか僕見たくない。
He pulled out the hamburger from the paper bag and took a big bite out of it. That said, though her attitude has seemed like to act to Beo, it was true that Toko was in unusually good mood. It was unclear why that was the case, but Toko seemed to be feeling something special, or at least something she had never shown Beo before.
なんだろう、あの匂い。妙にふわふわしてて、うっとうしくて。
Beo couldn't understand what exactly this feeling was. He only knew basic feelings such as liking, dislike, or delicious or disgusting. He was able to articulate even much further than that yet.
まあいいけど、僕には関係ないし、瞳子さんも明日になればいつもの瞳子さんだろうし。
Beo continued to eat through his hamburgers and still not completely satisfied with a day's course of events. The truth was, even if Beo didn't care enough to understand, he was still a little upset that there was something he didn't know. A few days have passed. Unbeknownst to the people of Misaki, progress was being made on the remodeling of the old school building. Meanwhile, Beo was bored out of his mind, knowing he had to be stuck here for at least another month. He could feel both his body and his mind dulling as he spent his days simply lurching around eating meat. On the other hand,
買い出しに出てくるから、あとはよろしくね。元気してた？はい、お土産のローストビーフ。行ってきます。屋上の機材片付けておいてね。ただいま。今日もお留守番ご苦労様。
よし、行ってくるでござる。
お疲れ。 酒臭い？バカ、酔ってなんかないです。全然酔ってなんかないもん。
This is what Tucker had become. The man was constantly out and always in a good mood, in stark contrast to Beo, who would spend the days doing nothing. Especially she was happy with her workshop was become more and more fortified by the day.
違う、もうそんなんで瞳子さんの機嫌は良くなんないし、ここに関しちゃぐちぐち不満ばっかりこぼしてるし、何よりござるとかバカっぽいこと言わないし。
どうしたのベオくん。すっごく不細工な顔してるけど。
そういう問題じゃありません。まあそりゃ早く本命とエラと戦ってみたいけど、もうちょっと先なんでしょ。なら我慢するけどなんか変。いつも下準備の時はこれぐらい暇だけど緊張感がない。毎日食べて寝て食べて寝てじゃ太る。ブクブクに太るよ。そんな。
何言ってるんだか。ベオくんにそんな心配は無用でしょ。排泄もしないくせにまともな生き物ぶってるんじゃありません。
だから主に瞳子さんがブクブクに。
ベオくん、それ本当？数値は変わってないはずだけど、なんかこうアストラル的に増えちゃったりしてる？
This is what Beo was talking about. Tucker knew the collage of Beo's eye and trusted his discerning vision over even the numbers on the scale. Normally Tucker would just remove her glasses and say something like,
唐突だが特攻兵器の有用性を確認したくなった。ああ、いや意見は聞いていない。さあベオ、この首輪をつけてみろ。
but she hadn't done anything of the sort. It was beyond weird for her.
別に増えてないよ。昨日とちょっとの上下差はあるけど、そんなの人間なら当たり前だし、いちいち本気にするとか見苦し。
本当？こう後でボテッとくるような気配とかない？
ないってば。昨日取った栄養分はきれいに分配されてるし、いつも通りの瞳子さんだよ。
The last part was a lie. She was not the same Tucker that Beo had always known. Even though she was supposedly the same, there was something still odd about her since a few days ago. Aber ich gleich Speicherbefolgt ab, beide. Ich hab keine Kraft mehr. Wir werden wahrscheinlich Freitag weiter streamen. Bye bye und viel